Hey guys, and welcome back to the next chapter in our Super Smash Bros. Coding tutorial. If you're just joining us, you should probably skip back to part 1, which you can find linked up above. Remember to subscribe and let us know what you think in the comments. Here's Ben with your tutorial.
Welcome back to part 3 of this Smash Bros. Tutorial. And in our last episode, we covered how to get Link working. He can jump. A little delayed, that's just because of the recording. You can jump, you can block, you can do a bunch, you can attack, you can do a bunch of things. And in this episode, we're actually going to get all the menu working. We're going to be able to select our characters and do all the things like that. So you'll notice I have a few different variables around here. We're also going to be working with them, and I'll explain what each of them do as we get on with the episode. So, first we're going to go here. This is Link. We're going to go to our first sprite over here. So that's the title screen. This guy right here. And we're going to start coding in here. So this is the main title screen that comes on. It's also the flash screen, so it's the thing you're always going to see most of the time. Especially when after you click play, things like that. So whenever the green flag is clicked, we're going to broadcast overall start. Now we do use start already when we use in Link. So if you see over here, we do when we receive start. That is a separate broadcast. Start is for the players. Here, overall start is for something completely different. Overall start is like we're starting at the very top, and this is pretty much a loop that'll allow us to play the game over and over again once we've finished. So we're using overall start, then we're going to show, and then forever go to the front layer. So if I click here, now it's just always going to go to the front layer in front of everything else, like that. Okay? So nice and easy. I'm going to go over here, we're going to grab when we receive overall start. So in other words, when we click the green flag, this code here is going to run. We're going to set our volume to 100%. We're going to set the ghost effect to 0, and we're going to set our size to 140%. And then we're going to go to these coordinates here. So all this is doing is it's resetting the volume, ghost effect to 0, make sure we can see it, set size, and the go to X and Y here is just going to put it right nice big in our screen like this here. Just like that here on the big screen. Okay, then we have to do a bunch of things with our variables. We want to hide player 1 and player 2 health. We want to hide player 1 and player 2 lives. We want to hide player 1 and player 2 select. And then we're also going to want to hide, or we're also going to want to set player 1 and player 2 attack to 0. We covered them in our last episode. We're just going to make sure they're 0. We're going to make sure player 1 and player 2 health are 0. And we're also going to set both of their lives to 3. Now, for now, we're actually going to keep most of this code out. We're going to keep the lives and the health in. Actually, we're going to keep all of the sets, but we're not going to hide any of these variables just yet, so I want to actually show you how it works. So we're going to keep them in here, but here you guys can put them in there just like that, okay? So we have all them. I do have a little guide down here. This here is for testing purposes. If we want, we can set player 1 and player 2 lives to 1. This will help when we're testing, making sure the game over is working well. But for now, I'm just going to leave them here. We're probably going to use them in the next episode when we go and we test the game over and everything. Okay? And then the last thing we have here is forever, play Smash Bros. Theme until done, and then wait 5-second delay, and then it'll play it again and again and again. So that's always just going to play a Smash Bros. Theme, so we click here. Now, you'll notice all of a sudden something really weird happened. There we go, now it's done. Okay? So it's going to play that there. Forget about the really weird sound that happened before. That sometimes happens, some sound glitching out. It's okay. What's supposed to happen is just like this here. And then that's going to play music forever. Okay? But we do not want it to play music forever. Okay? So we're going to grab this bit of code just over here. So we're going to have it so whenever we actually click on this here, so wherever in our full screen, we got this thing here, we're playing music. Whenever we actually click down and we click on this guy here, we actually want it to disappear and we want to go into the selection screen. It actually says click over here. So I move this variable out of the way. So click to continue just like that, okay? So the code we use for this, we're going to grab when this sprite is clicked. So whenever we click on this guy here, we're going to stop all sounds. So that's going to stop this forever loop over here. It's going to stop playing music. Then we are going to set our volume to 150 and play select sound until done. So if I go here, I'll show you just that part there. It's going to go here. And it's going to play the select sound. But it's not going to do anything after that because we actually have to make it fade away and go away. So we're going to also stop all other scripts in our sprite. So that's going to stop this forever loop. We may have stopped the music up here, but there's still a 5-second delay and it'll continue to play again. So we're going to make sure we stop this forever loop so it doesn't keep playing. Then we're going to broadcast arena selection. So this is going to tell all of our other sprites that it's time to select our arena. We also have another broadcast that we're going to use later on. That's called setup, and that's going to help us set up all of our characters. Then we're going to reset our volume back to 100%, and we're going to wait 0.1 seconds, a little delay, and then repeat 20 times. We're going to change the ghost effect by 5. So what this is going to do is going to slowly fade our thing away. So let's see what all this does here. Here, plays our music. Click, and then it slowly fades out, and then now we broadcast arena selection. Now we can go and do all of our arena selection stuff and all stuff like that. Okay, so that's working fine. Just like that, we can go out here. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to grab when we receive arena selection. So in other words, when this code ends here, we're going to make sure we forever go to the front layer. So because we actually stop all stuff in our sprite, we also stop this bit of code over here. And we always want this to continue. So we're going to make sure we go and we do the exact same amount of code, and that's just going to make sure we forever stay at the front layer. So that's our title screen done. That's all the code we have to do in here. Like I said, you guys can put this stuff back in here. I'm just going to leave it out so you guys can see all the variables, make sure it's working okay. Yeah, so that's our title screen. That's working fine. Now it's time to move on to some of our character things and our other screens and things like that. Okay, so the next part we're going to do, we're going to go over to our character select over here, which is the sprite down at the bottom. This is going to be some of our screens. It's not just character select. We also have our stage select in here too, which is what we're going to be using right now. So we have this guy over here, and now let's start coding in here. So first things first, we're going to grab here, when we receive overall start, we're going to make sure we show. Now originally this will seem a little weird because we don't want, whenever we click the green flag, we don't want this guy to come over top, but we're never actually going to see this whenever we click the green flag, because our previous sprite that we just did is always on the front layer. So we're going to show this here, and then whenever we receive arena selection, we know that our other background is slowly going to fade away. So now it's time to actually do our arena selection, and now we'll actually be able to see the screen. So we're going to switch to our stage select. So I just showed that before. That's this guy here. We're going to make sure our size is 120. We're going to go to these coordinates here. So that's going to go here. And it's going to do this here. Of course, we do have to fix Link and Kirby. We'll worry about that a little later on though. So there, we're going to go to the back layer and then go forward one layer. Now, there's a lot of things to do with layers here, because think about it, we have to do our hand, we have to do our little chips, and there's a lot of issues with the chips too. We have to make sure we're clicking the right thing, so you have to make sure the layers are okay. So this is just going to put it at the back layer, and then we move it forward one layer. I'll kind of explain that a little later on. Just know right now it's going to be fully at the back layer. Yeah, pretty much. Then we're going to show, we're going to set our volume to 50% so it's not as loud, and then we're going to forever play the Smash Bros. Background music. So we go here, click, and then now we're going to play some more music. And then from there we can do all kinds of things, okay? So you have that guy there. For now, I'm actually going to go over to Link here, and we're going to go up to the start, make sure we're not hiding, and we're just going to hide Link and Kirby. We don't need to see that, and then I'll take that away, okay? So that's like there. That way we just don't see Link and Kirby. As I said before in part 1, this part's temporary. We're actually going to code the main part a little later on. So that's our character thing down here. Now we have to display all the chips and get our hand working. So the select hand for the arena selection is actually really easy. We're going to go over to our select hand, this guy down here, and then it's actually really, really easy code. So this is the little hand that's going to follow us around. Right now we don't have a chip to put in. We're going to code that in a second. That's the hand, and we're going to be able to go and we can click on whatever arena we want. So we're going to grab here, when we receive arena selection, we're going to go to 0, 0. We're going to set our size to 70%, and we're going to switch to costume in hand. We're going to also want to make sure we show. So we're going to go here, we click down, and there we go. That's our little chip there. But of course, it has to actually go wherever our mouse goes, right? So we're going to have a little delay, and that delay is for the screen slowly fading out. Then we're going to go to the front layer, like that. And this 0.3 second delay is also to make sure that our character thing over here, this thing has to go to the back layer, and then this thing has to wait a little bit, and then make sure it goes to the front layer. So we're just making sure all of our layers work as well too. And then forever, we're going to go to the mouse pointer. So let's try that over here, like so. And there we go. So I move my chip around here, and it follows us around. So that's working fine here. You can go out there. I'm actually going to move this variable down. It's going to annoy me. There we go, just like that. okay? So you have that working now, but we actually have to do other things with that too. We have to make sure we can actually click on the arena things, so we're gonna get that working, and then we're also gonna put a little chip in our hand, okay? So we have those two little bits to do now. Okay, so we're gonna go over here, and we're gonna actually, all of our code, the little display chips that we use in the real game, are actually just the stage. So the same thing we have in the background, we're actually just gonna use the same sprite to display the options. So there's a little bit more code here than before, but it's still pretty easy. So we're gonna grab when we receive arena selection, we're actually gonna hide it, and then make sure we go to the front layer. Now we're actually hiding it because we're not actually using the main stage. Later on down the line, we're actually gonna create clones of ourselves over here. So for now, we're just gonna hide our original one, and then we'll display the clones and do other stuff a little later on. Okay, so we have that guy here, and we go here, and we're gonna set our arena number to 0. So arena number is another variable we have. I'm actually gonna display it in here. Arena number to 0, it's up here like this. This is pretty much a counter, and we're just gonna loop by ourselves, and we're gonna send arena number, and we're gonna use it over here, okay? So in other words, arena number is just a counter, and we're constantly gonna be changing it, and we're gonna change it exactly 4 times. So it's gonna start at 1, then we're gonna create a clone of ourselves, then it's gonna go to 2, create a clone of ourselves, 3, create a clone, and then 4, create a clone. And what that's gonna do is it's actually gonna give each of our clones a number that they have, and we're gonna use that number a little later on, and we're gonna save it using a custom block, but I'll get into that in a sec. So for now, we are creating a clone of ourselves 4 times, like that. So that's for our 4 different maps. And then we're gonna set our size to 95. We're gonna go to these coordinates here, and then we're gonna show and forever switch to costume map select. So if I go over here, what that last little bit of code is doing is pretty much putting our little arena over here. So now we have our dude here, our arena going like that, and it's forever gonna be map select. So right now here, map select is 2. So right now it's the Pokemon arena. If map select was 3, for example, it would be something else. So that guy's working fine, perfect, just like that. Now we actually have to work on our clones. So we're gonna go over here, and we're gonna grab when we start as clone, we're gonna set our size to 80%, so not the 95, they're gonna be a little smaller. And then we're gonna use our arena number to help us, I'll move this down a little, to help us get all the spacing right. So what we want is we want to have 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to have our different arenas displayed, and we're going to do this using our arena number. So if our arena number is less than 3, then we're going to go to these X coordinates here. So I'll pull this guy out a little bit. So we're going to grab our arena number, we're going to subtract 1, and then multiply it by 150. So let's say our arena number is 1, okay? Our arena number is 1, so that's the first one. 1 subtract 1 is 0. Then we times by 150. That's 0, and then we add 5, so our X value is going to be 5. But let's say our arena number is 2, and if you notice, we're going to change it each time, right? So the next time round, it's going to be 2. And we're still going to go into this loop, so we're still going to run here. This time, our arena number, we're going to take our arena number, we're going to subtract 1, then times 150. So 1 times 150, it's 150, plus 5, we know it's 155. So our first one is going to be over here somewhere. I'll go big screen. Our first one's going to be over here. And then our next one, because our arena number is increased, is going to be over to the side here. And it's the exact same down here for the next little bit over here, except this time we've changed the Y coordinate. So we're going to be further down, and that's if it gets greater than 2. So we have 1, 2, and then 3, 4. I'll show it to you in 2 seconds. Then we're going to switch to our arena number. So because our arena number is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, if I go to the costumes, these are the different stages we have. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is kind of what I mentioned before. So we're going to switch to that costume, we're going to show, and then we're going to use this custom block over here. But before we do that, let's show you what happens. So here, you click there. There we go. So we have all of our arenas displayed now. So this one's 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. And yeah, it's working perfectly just like that. And right now our map select is 2 up at the top here. So right now it's displaying 2. But now we can actually start changing that. So we're going to do that using detect. And because we're going to be increasing our arena number, we want to be able to hold on to this number. So we're going to do that using our custom block. So we're going to send our custom block our arena number. So our custom block knows that char number, that's going to be 1, for example. That means it's costume 1. That means it's this guy over here. So let's say it's 1, for example. Then we're going to have a forever loop, and we're going to check if we're touching the player select icon. So if we're touching, we'll go over here, this guy over here, which we're going to code a little later on. if we're ever touching that guy, then we're going to set map select, which is the map that we're currently hovering over. And if we ever click down, that map select is going to stay the same to our char number. So whatever number it is. Okay? So it'll better explain if I show it to you. Except we don't have the chip working yet. So it won't actually work yet. But we'll get on to that. As soon as I show you how the chip works, then the next part, then it'll be really easy. So let's move on to the actual chip itself. So we're going to go to the player select thing over here. Now it's pretty easy. We're going to go this guy over here. Really easy bit of code just here. Zoom in. We'll do the rest of that later. When we receive arena selection, we're going to wait a little bit of a delay. This is again to do with the layers. Then we're going to go to the front layer. Then we're going to show, set our size to 80%, switch to the icon stage select icon. That's confusing. But it's going to switch to this guy over here. And then forever, we're going to go to the mouse pointer. Now, one thing I should show you is our select hand is actually offset a little bit. So you see here, that's our little starting point here. It's actually offset off here. So our chip is actually going to go in here. And our cursor is going to be on top. So we're going to have our cursor here, just like that. And we're actually going to be touching the icon over here. Okay? Then we're going to want one other bit of code, and that's over here. I'll zoom out a little somewhere. Where to go? Oh, that's the wrong sprite. There we go. My bad. We go over here. There we go. This bit of code here. For now, we're not going to worry about any of that. We just want one little bit of code just like here. So here, whenever the sprite is clicked, because we're actually going to be touching, and I'll show you that in 2 seconds. In fact, I'll show you that now. We go here, here, we go here. So if you notice, my mouse is actually touching the select icon and not the hand. And that's really important because we're actually going to be able to detect whenever we click on the icon itself. Okay? So we're going to go back here, stop all that. Whenever we actually click on the sprite, and we're going to make sure we're touching the stage, we're going to play sound 6, which is just a select sound, and then we're going to broadcast setup. Now setup is a little more here. We're going to deal with setup, and that's selecting all the characters. But in essence, now if we go here, it should work pretty well. We can go here, click, and now if we actually hover over any of the arenas, you actually notice up top, our map select will change to 3. And that's because the icon is touching the arena. So now we can go here, this is 4, 2, 1, and just like that, whichever one we go to, our other little arena over here will change to that appearance. Now if we want to click down, it won't let us click anywhere else unless we're touching one of the arenas. So we can actually click on this guy, but it's better if we just go here and we click here. Let's go this guy. We click here, it's going to play that, but as you can see, nothing really happens yet. So we still have to code the rest of that over there. But that's working fine there. The reason why nothing actually happened was because, well, it did happen. We broadcasted setup, but now we actually have to use setup and we actually have to code in there. So we're going to go back to our character selecting over here, and we're going to run this bit of code here. So I'm going to scooch that over, and we're going to zoom in here. Okay, so whenever we receive setup, we're going to start sound VC menu narration. So it's pretty much going to start a sound like here. I'll show you really quick. There we go.
Choose your fighter.
So a pretty cool sound from Smash Bros. We're going to play that sound. We're going to set a size to 125. We're going to switch to character select. So that's this guy over here, like that. Here we're going to make sure we go to the back layer and forward one layer just like we did before. And we're going to also set player 1 name and player 2 name to P1 and P2. We're going to cover this a little later, but we're actually going to be able to change our name inside the game, just like the real Smash Bros. But for now, we're just going to set player 1 name to P1, player 2 name to P2. Just nice and easy. And then we're making sure we show. So now if we go here, we click down as we did before. We have our icon, we have our thing changing like that, and we're going to click, let's say, random. Now everything's going to change like that. So now we're actually in our back screen. However, we have one other little issue. You see here, these things still stayed like that. So now we have to get rid of them, make sure they're not showing. Okay, so now if we go over to our stage, it's actually a really easy thing to get rid of all those other little things. We go back to our stage over here with all this other code, and then we're going to grab when we receive setup, we're just going to stop all of the scripts in our sprite, we're going to hide and then delete the clones. And same if we receive arena selection, we're going to make sure we delete all the previous clones. So now if we go here, like so, click down. So let's say we click on this guy here, it's going to stay at 3, map select is going to stay at 3. We can hide arena number, I'll do that in a second. But now we're actually on the other screen, they've all faded away. We broadcasted setup. But one other thing we do have to change is our hand. Our hand should not be the icon. We have to change that around. But we'll do that. First, we're actually going to get our back button working though. Because right now, if we click on the back button, nothing's happening, okay? So we're going to get that working first. Okay, so for the back arrow, we're going to go and we're going to click on the back arrow sprite down at the bottom. I'm also going to quickly go and hide the arena number. We don't really need to see that anymore. That's just the counter that we're using. And then we have a bit of code over here. So the first bit of code we're going to quickly do is when we receive arena selection, so whenever we're selecting our arena, we're going to switch to costume stage select. Now the back arrow actually has two different costumes, one for the stage select, one for the player select. It just helps blend in with the background better. And it got kind of weird looking if I tried to slice it along here. So we just have two different ones there. We're going to show, we're going to set our size to 125, and then go up here to the coordinates. That's going to put it in the top left hand corner of our screen. And then forever, if we touch the mouse pointer and mouse down. So remember, we can never actually click on it because we have an icon in our hand. So if we have an icon in our hand, and then whenever we click down, we're not actually going to be clicking the back arrow. We're going to be trying to click the icon. But of course, it's not going to let us because our icon will only let us click if we're touching our arena. So that doesn't work. So we work around that. We're going to check if we're touching the mouse pointer and then we click down. So if that ever happens, we're going to hide and then we're going to stop all other scripts in our sprite. So not in our sprite, we're going to stop absolutely everything. So I'll make sure we connect that. Now I'll show you here, like so, click here. So now it's going to appear, and if we click this little back arrow up at the top, we're just going to stop everything, and it's going to go back to our main screen. And then whenever we receive setup, we can just switch to a different costume. We can switch to player select, so that's the other one down here. So now if we go here, the forever loop is going to keep on going, so we're still going to be detecting. So we can click here, and we're still going to be detecting whenever mouse down. So this bit of code over here is still running, we just switch the costume. So nice and easy. Now we have to get our hand working, as well as the other chips, as well as our characters actually showing and all the character icons. So for the character icons, we'll do the character icons first. We're going to go over to character icons over here, and then we have a bit of code, which is actually very, very similar to our thing we just did before. With our arena section, with our stages over here, it's pretty much the exact same thing. So first thing here, we're going to grab when I receive arena selection, we're just going to make sure we hide so we can't actually see any of our character icons. And then we have to do all this bit of code over here. So also you can see it's very similar. We have it detecting over here. It's a little bit different, but it's the exact same concept as we did before. So whenever we receive setup, that means we're selecting our characters. We're going to set char number to 0. Now, just like before, char number is the same thing as our arena number. They're counters that we're going to use. So we're going to set that to 0. We're going to set player 1 select. So in other words, who they want to be. We covered that before with link. That's this bit of code over here. That's who they want to be. We also use this later on when we're doing all this here. So we're going to set that to 0, and then we're going to set player 2's to -1. Now this -1 is actually really important. You can't set both of them to 0, and I'll explain that a little later on. Then we're going to make sure we hide. We're going to set our size to 65. Again, we're not actually using our real one. We're going to create clones of ourselves over here. We're going to wait 0.2 seconds. Then we're going to set our character number back to 0, or making sure it's 0. I don't know why we have a second one there. We could just get rid of that one. There we go. And then we're going to repeat 6 times, and we're going to constantly change our character number by 1 each time. And then create a clone. So it's the exact same as the arena over here. Exact same thing, just a little different numbers. Instead we have -30 here, and we're adding this guy over here, and it's instead here. It's less than 4. That way we can fit 3 of them on our screen. We connect that up there. The y is equal to 100 here, and then 12 on the second row. And we also have to make sure we subtract 4 on this one here. Because our character number is going to be increasing each time, we have to make sure we're subtracting 4. That'll get our x coordinate all the way back. So let's say our character number was, we'll make it 4 for example. 4 subtract 4 equals 0. And if we times by 100 and then do the rest of it, it's going to keep the same x coordinate as the one above. So a little confusing, but we did the exact same over here for our stage. If I can find it, it was subtract 3 instead of subtract 1. And that's really important because if it's not, then our x is going to keep on increasing, and our stages are going to go completely off the screen. So we have that guy over here. We're going to go back to our character icons. It's the exact same thing. We're going to switch to our character number. We're going to show, and then we're going to always detect. So over here. And then forever, it's the exact same thing. If we're touching our player select icon, we're going to set player 1 select to our char number. Or if we're touching the player 2 select icon, then we're going to set player 2 select to the char icon. So let's try this over here, like so. Click there. There we go. So, oh, there we go. Here we go. We have all of our characters working like here. Now, of course, it's not going to work right now. Or player 1 select is working actually because we're using the chip. But we won't be able to do player 2 select because we haven't got the hand working. But you can see here, if we're touching the chip, it's going to go here. Link is 1, Kirby's 2, Pikachu's 3, Bowser's 4, Mario 5, and then Random is 6. Now, we actually use this a lot, like with the death effect, all kinds of things. Each one of these characters is assigned their own number, and then we're just using it more here. So eventually, we want to be able to go, we want to be able to click on them, which we can't right now. We want to be able to click down, and then from there, we can go and we can actually start playing, okay? So we got that all working here. Now it's time to actually make sure we get the hand working as well. So for the hand, we can go down to the select hand sprite like we did before, and then we have all this code here. We're going to do this part a lot later on. That's fine. And then we have this huge bit over here, which is actually really, really easy. It just looks pretty long there, okay? But before we actually do that, there's one thing I'm going to quickly show you, and that's this other little program that I made to better show you how the hand works. So we're using something called the modulus block, or mod, just to be short here. So that's this block here. Some of you guys may have used it before. To be short, it takes the number, so let's say I have 5, and modulus 2. It's going to take this, it's going to do 5 divided by 2, and then it's going to take the remainder. So 5 divided by 2, that's 2.5, right? But for this, we want a remainder. So 5 divided by 2 is 2 with a remainder of 1. So the answer to this would give me 1, right? If this was 6, for example, 6 divided by 2 is 3 with a remainder of 0. So therefore, the answer to this one would equal 0. And this goes on and on and on. And we can use this for our hand. So here I have a simple little thing set up here. Whenever we click on the cat, one of my variable is going to increase by 1. So here, whenever we click on it, increase by 1. And then forever, we're either going to be holding our chip or we're not. So in this case, we don't have a chip or anything like that, but just kind of pretend they are. If we click on our chip, so let's say our cat is our chip, we can click on it. It can either be in our hand or it can be on the floor. So I'll demonstrate it here. So we have it here. So if we click on our chip, we have our chip in our hand and we click on it, we're not holding it anymore. But then we click on it again, we are. We're not, we are. And we do this using the modulus block here. So we have our variable and we do modulus 2, and then if it equals 0, or if it equals an even number, so if the remainder equals 0 and we divide it by 2, that means it's going to be an even number, then we know we're holding our chip. If not, then we know it's going to be an odd number and we're not holding our chip. And you'll notice the my variable up here, 4, no matter how many times I click it, it's going to keep increasing and increasing, but we know that it'll only be even or odd, right? So we can use this. We don't really care about this number, we just care about whether it's an even or odd number. So we can use this number to figure out whether we're holding our chip or not. So using the same logic over here, really, really similar. We'll go in here. We're using the same logic over here. If one player select, which is our other little counter variables that we're using, that's down over here, down at the bottom, these two guys over here, I'll show you quickly. These guys over here, we're using these as our counter variables, like that. So if that, remainder 2, so modulus 2, if it equals 0, so if it's an odd number, or if the player 2 or the other chip, if that equals 0, and we're going to get into these things a little more, we have them in our other icons down at the bottom. But if the remainder equals 0 or they're even numbers, then we know that it's in our hand. So just like we did before, if it's even, then it's in our hand. If not, then we know our chip isn't in our hand and we have no chips in our hand because it's not player 1 or player 2, so then we can run over here. Now we have a few different costumes in our hand. We have it whether it's in our hand, we have it whether we're able to click on something. Note it's also a little offset, so we're not clicking on this thing. And then we have it if we're not selecting at all, we're not touching anything. So we're going to switch to choosing, or if we are able to click on something, if we're touching any one of these things here. So if we're touching P2 name enter or P1 name enter, so that's these two little dudes over here, our two sprites when we want to change our name. If we're touching the player select icons, so any of these guys, oops, okay, easy, there we go. If we're touching any of the little icons down at the bottom, we want to pick it up and put it back. If we're touching ready to fight, which is another little thing we'll get into a little later. If we're touching the other select icon, or if we're touching Link, Kirby, Pikachu, Bowser, Mario, any one of them, or the back arrow, we're going to switch to this costume over here. We're going to switch to this because we're able to click on it and able to do something with it. So eventually we're going to have, I'll show you quickly here, eventually we're going to have it, we go here, and after we click on a character, it's gonna, there, just like that, Bowser's gonna come down like that, and we're gonna be able to click on Bowser and change his color and do fancy things like that. So that's why we have Pikachu, Bowser, and all them in there. So we're switched to choosing. If not, so if we're not holding our chips and we're not touching any of them, then we can switch to not selecting, and then we'll just be free like that, okay? So we can put this guy in our forever loop. Of course, we have forever go to the mouse pointer. And then we also have a little bit more stuff here. This is, of course, when we receive setup. We're going to stop other scripts in our sprite, so it'll stop this loop over here. We're going to switch to costume choosing. So, of course, that's this guy over here. We're going to show. We're going to have the, again, wait 0.3 seconds before going to the front layer. And then we can run this huge bit of code here. Now, whether or not this works or not, because we don't have our icon chips, may go a little weird. But we go here. Yeah, so right now it's a little weird because we have our icon chips. We haven't set it up. But for now, we'll have to get our icon chips before that will work. Alright, so let's actually get on to programming some of that. So we can go to the little icon chip over here. And then we can zoom out a little over here. And then we have some code over here. So before, it probably looked a little confusing, but you see I took a few things off, put a few things on. But for now, I'm going to move all of them over here. And we're going to remember about this bit of code just over here. So when we receive setup, when we're selecting our characters, we're going to stop all of our other scripts in our sprite. So we're going to stop this guy over here. We're going to wait 0.2 seconds before going to the front layer. We're going to go to these coordinates over here, just randomly. This could be 0, 0, it doesn't really matter. And then we're going to set one player select to 0. So that's that variable over here. And remember, if it's a 0, that means it's an even number. So we know that it's in our hand. Then we're going to show, set size to 60%, and we're going to switch to P1. So we're not going to be at this one anymore. We're going to switch to player 1. And this is the player 1 select. And we have our player 1 select chip over here, and then we also have a chip for player 2. And then we're going to use move, which is very similar to what we use. We'd use a detect, a little detect function we did before in some of our other things. It's kind of similar to that, but we'll get onto that in 2 seconds. Let's just see what we did there. So we go here, like so. So here, one player select now is in 0, so that means we're now holding our chip. We go around. We're not able to click or put it down yet because we haven't coded that. That's in the little move part I just mentioned. But now our hand is actually switched to the other thing. So we know that's good. So you can go out, and now we can actually do this custom block over here. So it's kind of similar to what we did before, as I just said. We're forever, and then we have 2 different things here. We'll cover this part in a sec. So if we're here, if mod 1, so here, like we always do, if it's an even number, so remember, if our player 1 chip, it's even, so that means we're holding it, then we go to our mouse pointer. If not, then we have this guy over here. Well, if not. If we have another if statement and we're detecting something else. Fuck, nah, that's bad. Oops. So we've already done a little bit of coding in here, but we're going to add on a little more, and that's for the character select. So we already did all this bit here, and then we're also going to be adding a little bit more on there. But for now, we're going to grab when we receive setup. We're going to stop other scripts in our sprite to stop this forever loop over here. We're going to wait 0.2 seconds. We're going to go to the front layer. We're going to go to these coordinates here. It doesn't really matter. This could be 0, 0. I'm just going to make sure we're there. So we're in the middle of our screen. We're going to set one player select to 0. So one player select is the exact same thing as my variable. That's the counter we're going to be using. That's going to constantly be increasing. So we have that. We're going to make sure we show. We're going to set size to 60%, and we're going to switch to player 1. So we have here, we have this guy, and then this is for our player 1. And we have another sprite down here, that's for player 2. Okay, so we're going to switch that costume, and then we're going to use another custom block called move. So that's down here, and this is just a forever loop, and inside this forever loop, we're going to detect 2 things. So we're checking, 1, whether or not we should be going to our mouse pointer or not. So if we're an even number, so just like we did before, if we're an even number, that means we're holding our chip. So if we are an even number, then we're going to make sure we go to our mouse pointer, because that means we're actually holding our chip. And then if not, we won't go to our mouse pointer. So I don't need an if else, because if it's not an even number, we just won't go to our mouse pointer. But we do need a way of being able to change whether or not we go to our mouse pointer. So we'll move that there for now. We'll cover this bit in a sec. So how do we know, how do we actually put down our chip, pick up our chip? That's over here. So that's this bit of code over here. We're going to add this on here, so whenever the sprite is clicked, just the same mechanics as we used before in the arena selection. We're going to check if we're touching the character icon, and then we have this huge bit over here. This may look confusing at first, but it's actually really easy. We have 2 little bits here, and we're checking OR here. So if player 1 select equals 6, so if we're clicking a random number, so player 6 here, I'll show you quickly. with our character icons. If we selected 6, that means we are 6, so we are picking random. So if we chose to click a random person, go back to our code, then it's fine. However, 2 people can click random. However, we can't have more than 2 people click link, for example. So we do that here. One player select and player 2 select here are variables that determine, or we already showed them before, what character you want to pick. So we have to make sure that both of them don't equal 1. And that's actually why we changed one of them to 1 and the other one to -1, so that we're able to put down our chip at the start. So we have these guys here, player 1 and player 2 select over here. And we'll check that in here. And we also have to make sure we're touching the character icons. Then we're going to broadcast P2 select character. So what that means is player 2 can now go and select their character because we placed down our chip. Here we're going to change one player select by 1. So we're going to increase our counter just like we did over here. So whenever we click on it here, we increase our counter so we're no longer holding our chip. And then we have another little bit over here. This is just to play a sound. We're going to check if it's an odd number. So if it's an odd number, that means we've just made it an odd number, so we just put it down. So if we just put it down, we're going to play 6, and then we're going to play P1 select. So you may wonder why I named it 6. Well, that was actually because of this guy over here. So 6 is this guy here. But I also have them labeled numerically because 1 goes for Link, and then 2 is for
Kirby,
and then it goes on and on and on, just like that. Okay, so we're playing both those sounds just like that. So let's see what happens now. Okay. We have this guy over here, we run here. Okay, so you notice our hand now is where we want it to be. It's in our other costume. And now if we click down, it's going to let us click. We've now gone to Link. Now we haven't programmed the other chip 2 yet, but we know we're Link. And then we can also see one player select is at 1. We can click on it again, and we can pick it back up. And you see one player, this guy over here, is increased. And whenever we hover over one player select, that's this variable here, is going to go whichever guy we want. So let's say we want Kirby, that's going to go to 2.
Kirby,
so we can click down there, and you notice we can keep increasing this variable. So we click on as many times as we want, and this guy down here at the bottom is going to keep increasing. So we can do that all we want, and that's just like we did over here. It's the exact same principle. We're just using this other variable to detect which player we want to be. So let's say we want to be Kirby. Why not? Okay, so we have that working now. Now we actually have to do the other chip, so player 2 actually should be able to do stuff. But quickly before we do that, there's one other thing we do want to add. Sometimes we may want to, I'll show you quickly. We have a little, this guy over here, ready to fight. Now we're going to code this later on, but this huge thing is going to come across our screen, right across the screen. And let's say we click both of our characters, this thing is going to come up. But let's say we don't like our characters and we want to change our characters. I have a little shortcut that I added in, so we'll go back here. That if key space is pressed, so if we ever press the space bar, then we're going to reset player 1 select. So if we ever hit the space bar, then we're going to set one player select to -2. However, if it's an odd number, then we're going to increase the one player select by 1. So if it's an odd number and we're not holding our chip, then all it's going to do is it's going to increase it by 1, which means we are holding our chip now because it's going to be an even number, and it's going to set it back to our hand. So that sounds complicated, and I explained it pretty bad, but we go over here, it's pretty simple. We go here, this, and let's say we click on Link, and now I hit the space bar, our chip is going to come right back to us. So we pretty much increase the variable, and of course if we hit the space bar here, it's not going to do anything like that. Okay? So, sweet, we have that working there like that. Now we have to do the second player select icon. So for the player 2 chip, it's almost identical to the player 1 chip, except for the player 1 chip, it also has the other costume, and we're also using it for the icon select. So this guy over here. But for the player 2 chip, we're not. So here, all we have is our player 2 chip. Okay? So we're gonna start off, we're gonna hide when we receive arena selection. So we don't actually need it at all for the arena selection. So we make sure it's hidden. And we go over here. Whenever we receive setup, so whenever we're actually going to start playing, we're actually going to start selecting our characters, we're actually still going to make sure we hide our chip. So after we go to the front layer, we're going to make sure we hide. Of course, we're going to set it to 60%, make sure we're in the right costume, and we can go to 0, but we're actually going to hide our chip because we have to wait a little bit before we can then go on and use it. Now, the last little thing I want to do over here is I want to set 2 player select to 0. Now, this is the almost identical variable to 1 player select, which we used before, which if you guys remember over here. So it's the same thing here as my variable, it's just for player 2. So that's what this guy here is for, so it's for the second chip. So we have this guy here, But now we actually have to wait a little bit in order for the first player to put down their chip so that the second player can then put down their chip. And we actually do that using a broadcast. So if you guys remember from up here, we broadcasted player 2 select char over here. So we're going to use the same broadcast, and then we're just going to go over here, and we're going to wait until we receive the player 2 select character. So whenever we receive that, we know that the other chip that player 1 has placed down their chip, and if they place down the chip, then we know that we can now go and place down our chip. So this is pretty easy. We're going to make sure we show so we can actually see our chip now. And then inside a forever loop, we're going to run this bit of code here. Now this bit of code is the exact same as we did in player 1. It's here, two player select, which is the variable over here. If it's an even number, so if the remainder is equal to 0, then we go to the mouse pointer. That means we're holding it, just like our other program. And then we also detecting if key space is pressed. If so, then we're going to stop all scripts in our sprite. So it's going to stop and exit out of this loop. Then we're going to hide, and we're going to reset some of our variables. So we're going to reset player 2 select to -1. That way it doesn't stay at 1, for example, and that means player 1 couldn't go and select it. Because remember, whenever we hit spacebar, we're actually resetting everything. So we're going to reset it back to -1 so that player 1 can then go and re-click it. Because if you guys remember from before, we have to make sure that 2 people aren't the same person. So that's why we're putting it to -1, and then we're just going to reset 2 player select back to 0. So we have all those guys. It's the exact same as player 1. I'll show you here. Exact same thing over here. Just doing over here. Okay, so we have that guy done there, and then we have a few little bits left. We also have to do our same thing whenever the sprite is clicked. We have to do the same over here. So again, this is the exact same thing as before. So literally copy and paste from player 1 select, which is over here. So it's just this guy we tacked on the end over there. So exact same thing. We're making sure we can either be a random, but we have to make sure that we're not the same person unless we're a random player. We have to make sure we're actually touching a character icon. And then instead we're using player 2 select, and we're changing that by 1. And then whenever we're doing our sounds, we're using player 2 select here. And then we're also detecting whether or not it's an odd number using that variable. So it's the same thing, just other variable. Put that guy back in there. There we go. So I'll make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, we're good. So let's see what happened now. That was a lot of code, but it's pretty much identical. So we can go here. Let's go this game. So now we can go link, and now our player 2 guy is going to pop up like this, and we know it's an even number, so we were able to control. And let's say we click on Kirby. There we go. And we can click on this guy. We put it back. We can click on this one. And there we go. And when I click here, it won't let us click on this guy either. So that's helpful too. We can go here. We can't click there. So we're all good. And it's also not going to let 2 players. I can't click. I'm clicking right now. It's not letting me become Link. Same way the other way around. It's not letting me become Kirby. Okay, so that's also really important. And then if we ever hit spacebar, just like that. So now I've just taken both of the chips back, and I go and click Link, and then Pikachu. Okay, so we know that's all working now. So I can exit out here. So our chips are working just how we want them to. So now we have to do the ready to fight thing over here. So that's this sprite down at the bottom here. This costume is going to come across here. So whenever we're ready to fight, whenever both players have selected their people, then we want this to big pop up, just like that. So for the code for the ready to fight, we're going to go to our code over here. Now this code is actually pretty easy. Well, it starts off easy. Whenever we receive overall start or arena selection, we're going to just make sure our ready to fight thing is hidden. Then we're going to scroll over here. So this is when we're actually starting to play now, and we want to detect when we're selecting our characters if both of the characters have actually selected both of their characters. A lot of characters. Okay, but it's pretty easy. First things first, we're going to wait 0.25 seconds before going to the front layer. Now if we go over to our player 2 select chip, we waited 0.2 seconds before going to the front layer. By waiting the extra 0.05 seconds, we're making sure that this sprite over here is going to be on the front layer above that one, so that whenever it pops up, we're not going to see the little chips in the way on top of the screen. So it'd look kind of weird. So we have those guys over here, and then we're going to have a nice big forever loop over here. And then inside, we're doing pretty easy code here, and we're just detecting whether or not both chips have been placed. So we're just detecting whether or not both of the things are odd numbers. So we've done this a million times already, so it's pretty self-explanatory from what we did before. We're just making sure that 2 player select and 1 player select, the modulus of that divided by 2, the remainder is equal to 1, which means it's an odd number, which means we placed it down. So what we always do. Then we're gonna, if both of them have been placed, then we can show. If not, we're just gonna hide our chips. Okay, so that's always gonna come up there. So let's actually see this in action, this little part there. Go here. So if we choose Link, Pikachu, now we're ready to fight thing is coming up, and then as soon as say we move this one, it's gonna hide again like that. Now there is one issue we do have, and it's the reason why I implemented the spacebar thing. If we wanted to change our things right now, we couldn't, because we're actually gonna want to click on this a little later on. So that's why I included the little spacebar feature. So a little thing, that's why that was there, just to make sure you don't get stuck there. Okay. So, last little thing we have to do here in this sprite, and then we're pretty much wrapped up. I don't think we're going to do anything else. We can leave that for the next episode, and we can actually make our characters in the next episode. So, that'll be really fun. We have to make Kirby, and it's really, really easy. I've already have all the sprites and things, but I'll mention that in a sec. First, let's finish this off. So, we're going to stop all other scripts in our sprite. So, we're actually just going to stop this forever loop over here. Then we're going to play sound select, so that's us actually hitting the thing. Then we're going to have a little bit of a delay before hiding our thing. And then there's one other quick thing we have to do before we run this here. So it is possible if we go here and we play like so, and we pick. If people pick random, which both people can pick random, if you saw there, so 2 people are able to click random. We coded that before. So if both people click random and things, we actually want to be able to select our random people. So we're actually just going to do that in this sprite here. We could have probably done that in a few other different sprites, but it's easier just to do it in here. So this is pretty easy. If player 1 select is equal to 6, that means they picked random. Then all we're going to do is we're going to set player 1 to select and pick a random number between 1 and 5. So again, 1 is Link and then 5 is Mario. It's going to pick between any one of those 5 people. But it's a little more complicated for player 6. So player 2. It's a little more complicated because we can do the same thing over here. We can detect player 2 if it equals 6. So if both people click random, then we're going to set player 2 select to pick random number from 1 to 5. However, there's a small issue with that. If, say, this one picks 2, for example, it picks Kirby, this one could then also pick 2, and then we'd have a lot of issues. So we have another little bit in here, and we're just going to repeat until player 2 select does not equal player 1 select. So we're just going to repeat until they're not the same, they don't pick the same number. And then we're just gonna select our number again. So, just like this, that'll allow us, now it'll make sure that they pick the random numbers, but they're both different numbers, so they're both different characters. So we can put that guy on there. And then the last thing we have to do, we're gonna broadcast play. Now this play thing, I'll explain a little more when we do Link and things like that, when we finish that bit off. But play just means we're actually gonna start playing, we're finally gonna start fighting, and actually play the game. Then we're going to wait 0.2 seconds after we broadcast that. We're going to stop all sounds, and then we're going to play these 2 sounds here. It's just going to say ready, and then go. So I'll show you the sounds. We have ready.
Ready?
And go.
Go!
Perfect. Just like that. We're going to do those sounds, and then we are good. So let's actually see what's happening here. You're going to go here. We're gonna click random numbers just because. So there we go. Here we can click down here. Goes here. And what is going on here? Everything is screwed up. It's because player 2 select is going all weird. Let's fix this real quick. So, zoom out a little bit here. So the reason why this is going all weird and wacky and all this stuff is because we still have to implement a few bits of code in our other sprites. So we're going to go to the player 1 chip over here, and then we're going to quickly attach this guy over here. So whenever we receive play, which is the broadcast I just used before, we're going to make sure we hide our chip and then stop all other sprites, stop all of the scripts inside the sprites, and then delete the clone. So we're here, we're just going to stop everything, and then we're going to make sure we delete all the clones. That'll stop the forever loop over here, and we're hiding it so we won't be able to click on it. So we'll stop all that. And then we're also going to go and do the same in player 2. So I'll zoom out over here, and that's over here. It's the exact same code. Whenever we receive play, we're going to hide and then stop all other scripts in our sprite, just like that. Okay, so I think that's good. We may have to do also in our select hand. Yep, we're going to go over here. Whenever we receive play, we're going to hide and stop all of the scripts in our sprite. So let's see what's happening here. Go here, play. This guy, let's go random, fight.
Ready? Go!
There we go. So, as you can see, the thing still isn't working well, but you can see player 1 select chose 1, and then player 2 select chose 2. If we were to redo this, hopefully we get different numbers. So let's go here, random.
Ready?
There you go. So this time, player 1 select pick 1, and then player 2 select pick 3. So we know our random thing is working fine, and it does say ready to go, and it does broadcast play. However, none of the other sprites care about if you broadcast play. So we do have to do a few little bits and bobs with that. So we're going to go here. And now we actually have to code the play part. So we have to do a few other little tweaks, and then we're going to cut it for this episode. So we're going to quickly add a few more things, make sure everything runs smoothly. Like we're going to go to our character select over here, and we're going to quickly do a few little adjustments. Whenever we receive play, we're going to stop all sounds and stop other scripts in our sprite. So this won't actually stop the ready go, because we actually have a little delay on our death effect. There's 0.5 seconds delay. That is not a death effect, not a death effect. Our ready to fight. So the 0.5 second delay, we still have that. So it's going to wait the 0.5 seconds before we stop all the sounds. So the timing works so that we don't stop all the sounds. But we are going to stop the theme song over here. And we're also going to stop this forever loop when we stop other scripts in our sprite. Then we're going to repeat 10 times. We're going to change the ghost effect by 10. So all this is going to do, I'll show you here. We'll go in. Whenever we click this guy, it's slowly going to fade away, except we actually want to do that whenever we receive play. Then we're just going to hide. We're going to hide and then clear all the graphic effects. That way we hide first, then we can clear this ghost effect thing, so we're back to 0. However, it won't matter at all because we're still hidden. And then forever, we're going to play another sound. We're going to grab map select -1 until done. So I'll go over here to our sounds. And here, these are all of our sounds. We have 1, 2, 3, and those are our different things. And the reason why we have subtract 1 is because if you notice at our menu screen over here, we go over here, you notice our first one is random, okay? So our first number here is random, right? And there's no sound effect if we pick a random thing. So we're gonna subtract the 1 so that on our sounds over here, this one here is the Pokemon Stadium, which is gonna be assigned 1, and then we have the next one, and then 2 and 3. So we can subtract 1 from that, and that'll get us our correct map and our correct sounds. So all these is they're just pretty much ambient sounds that we play. Just so there's a little bit of music in the background. If you can even hear it, it's very, very soft. Okay, so we have those guys there. Go back to our code. I'll worry about that part in the next episode. That's all good. So now let's give it a quick test. Let's go here. There's still a few other things we definitely have to do. I'm gonna turn down the sound a little. Go here. Let's choose Link. Pikachu. Go here.
Ready?
Whoa, okay, so as you can see, still a few things. We have to make sure we get rid of our character icons. We still have to deal with some of our sprites and things like that, our characters. And then we also have to get rid of this back arrow. That's kind of annoying. So that's a pretty easy fix. Let's go to our back arrow. We'll zoom out a little. So whenever we receive play, we're just going to hide, stop all the scripts in our sprite. Super easy. We can go to our character icons. And again, it's going to be a really easy bit of code over here. Whenever we receive play, we're going to hide. We're going to wait 2 seconds before stopping other scripts in our sprite, and then we're just going to delete all of our clones. So, really easy there. We've deleted both of them, and now we actually have to do our characters. So, let's go over to Link over here, and then we have a few different bits of code here. So before I'm actually going to go over here, this little temporary bit of code, we're actually just going to get rid of that. We don't really need that anymore. Now we can, for real, actually code it. So, this is the last bit of code we're going to do in the episode, and then we're going to wrap it up. So here, whenever we receive overall start, which is this guy over here, the very, very start, this thing we did at the very start of this episode, we go here, we're going to make sure we set is player 1 to 0. Now I'll kind of show you, well, I've already showed you what some of that does over here. Is player 1 is the variable that we always use whenever we receive play. Is player 1 is the variable that will be able to tell whether or not we are Link or not. Okay, so we have is player 1, which we covered in our last episode. We're going to make sure we clear all the graphic effects, hide, and then set rotation style to left and right. So very similar to what we did in that bit of code we just deleted. So we have that guy here, and then we have this last bit of code over here, and then we're done. So whenever we receive setup, we're going to quickly switch to link stand, just like that. And then forever, so link stand, so this is when we're selecting our characters. This is the little thing you saw down at the bottom. So I already have Pikachu coded alright. So if I go and I click Pikachu, you'll notice that Pikachu comes to the bottom. Pikachu's being hidden a little. But we want Pikachu to come up there, and that'll allow us to do a few things actually. So forever, we're just going to make sure we're going to detect whether or not player 1 select or player 2 select equal 1. So if any of the people have selected Link, then it'll equal 1. Player 1 select or player 2 select will equal 1. No, it will only ever be one of them because 2 people can't beat them. And then if we are player 1, so if player 1 did it, then we're going to point 90 degrees. So we're going to point in towards our screen. And then we're going to go to these coordinates here. So that's just going to put us down at the bottom left-hand corner of our screen. If not, that means player 2 did it. So it's going to point us at the bottom right-hand corner of our screen, and it's going to be pointing the other way. So both of them happen, then we're going to set our size really, really big. We're going to go to the back layer and then forward 2 layers. So it'll go in front of the character select screen over here. And then we also have another little thing. It's a little feature I added in, which is probably my favorite feature out of the whole game. And that's if we're ever touching our mouse pointer and mouse down, so whenever we're clicking or we're holding, then we're actually going to change our color effect by 5. And then if not, we're going to hide and clear all graphic effects. So let's show you what this does. This is, I got to put it in the loop first. There we go. This, I think, is it's my favorite part of this game, actually. So we go over here, click on Link, for example, and now if we go and click on Link, it's actually going to change colors like that. And he'll stay that color inside the game. So if we hold on him, we can change. If we click a little, we'll change the color. My favorite is this blue one. And eventually, we're going to have everyone have these things. So we can change Pikachu's color, change Bowser's color, Mario's setup, we can change his color. So I think this is my favorite thing. I didn't make it so very similar to the real Smash Bros. But I thought just by adding in that little feature, it'd be kind of cool. So that's actually us done. We have most of our code done now. We have a few other little things we have to do, but we have all of our arena selection working. We have our characters. We still have to actually program some of our characters. In the next episode, I'm going to demonstrate with Kirby. So we're going to get Kirby working, and then doing all the other characters will be really, really easy. We also have our ready to fight thing left to do. We finished this guy. And now we can actually go here. You notice Link is working pretty well. We still have our other characters, and we still also have to do a little more code on our stage. So we have to get all this working here. But apart from that, we are all good, okay? So I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Hope to see you there.
Well, that's it for this chapter. We'll be back next week with the next steps in this project. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please drop us a comment and especially send some love to Ben, who wrote this amazing game and filmed the tutorial. Make sure to like and subscribe for more amazing Scratch content. We'll see you next time.